The latest college football playoff rankings will be released tonight. But in the meantime, let's look at the top 10 that really matters. Pigskin Pete's. Let's go. All right, guys, if you're new here, make sure you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I do these college football videos and live streams year-round. There is no off-season for Pigskin Pete. Also, if you're new here, this is my opinion. This is my top 10 opinion. It's Pete's top 10. It's not a projection. I'm not comparing it to the college football playoffs rankings. I'm not comparing it to the AP. It's just my opinion. Now, it just so happens when the first rankings came out last Tuesday, I think it was 1 through 8. I pretty much had the same exact order as the college football playoff committee did, with the exception of one. I think I had Ohio State ahead of Clemson, and Clemson came in ahead of Ohio State. Anyway, nonetheless, a couple of the teams that were in my top 10 last week lost this week, so we're going to see a changing, especially towards the top of the order here. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's look at number 10. Last week, I had the Trojans at number 10. So my theory behind number 10 is after some of these undefeated and then one-loss teams in the Power 5, who's the best two-loss team? So you have a bunch of two-loss teams out there that are good, right? You got Oklahoma, you got Iowa State, you've got Georgia. So I had to pick one of them, and I think they're all pretty comparable, honestly. And you could put any of those three at the 10 spot as far as I'm concerned. The reason I chose Georgia over Iowa State and Oklahoma is mainly because of their defense. Now, again, you could make the argument and say, well, Oklahoma in particular, their offense is miles ahead of Georgia. So how could you just pick the defense? Well, I think the defense is slightly more important, and I think that we've learned that over the past several years in the playoffs. When teams like Oklahoma get in there, they get the doors blown off of them. So anyway, I find all of those teams very comparable, but I chose Georgia. Seems as if they have their quarterback now, which is good news for them. I can't believe they didn't get this figured out earlier in the season, and they might still be in the playoff hunt because I don't think that they are anymore. Let's take a look at number 9. Miami, one-loss team in the ACC. Now, I guess Miami's kind of been a beneficiary of not playing the past couple of weeks, and I'm not sure they're going to play again this weekend. I think that game might have got postponed. Nonetheless, Miami's only loss this season is to Clemson. At the time, Clemson was number 1. And I'm just going to be frank with you. You have to play the games, and you have to see how they turn out. I think that Miami would have won the games that got postponed, so they'd still be a one-loss team, most likely. And plus, I'm just looking around at all the other one-loss teams, and I think they're right where they should be, pretty much, at number 9. Let's take a look at number 8, Indiana. See, this is what I'm talking about. See, when you look at the order of one-loss teams, you have to figure out which ones are better than the others. So Indiana, for instance, just like Miami, has a quote-unquote good loss. There's no such thing as a good loss. Every loss is bad. But they have the best loss, right? They have a loss to Ohio State, who's a great team. Miami has a loss to a Clemson, who's a great team, so on and so forth. So that's my reasoning behind that. Indiana moving up to number 8 as a one-loss team. They're really good. Now, unfortunately for them, their starting quarterback is out for the season. He tore his ACL, so that's bad news for them. From what I understand, though, the backup quarterback is actually higher rated of a player than the starting quarterback was. So we'll see. Maybe there won't be any drop off there between the starter and the backup. I don't know. But Indiana's been a surprising team this year, and they have earned the right to be in the top 10. I have them at number 8. Number 7, same story, different week, right? What have I been saying all season, or at least for the past 5 weeks? Cincinnati's going to stay at 7 until they lose. Now, unfortunately for Cincinnati, their game this weekend is postponed, I'm assuming due to positive COVID tests or whatever. This does hurt their playoff chances. All right, there already need some things to happen if they want to squeak up into that top 4 as a group of 5 team. The fewer games they play, the less time they have to put together a great resume and blow teams out or whatever, the harder it is going to be for them to get in the top 4. I don't think they're going to get in the top 4 anyway, but there are some sort of weird scenarios that can happen to where they could get in, but they need all the games that they can get. I don't think this game was postponed because of Cincinnati. I think it was because of their opponent. If I'm not mistaken, was maybe Tulsa. So there was talk about Cincinnati trying to schedule somebody else, a Power 5 team, BYU, something like that. But the problem is most of these Power 5 conferences are not willing to play out of conference. So Cincinnati's kind of just left at the mercy of the Power 5 teams, which has been the issue with them all year. Nonetheless, I have Cincinnati at 7. I think that's where they're going to stay until further notice. Number 6, Florida. Florida's doing Florida things. Florida has every opportunity in the world to make the playoffs, even at 6. So it doesn't really matter where Florida is right now. Is it time to see a tight end win the Heisman? He won't win it over Trask because Trask is the one throwing him the ball, but I think Kyle Pitts should be in the conversation. Maybe the best tight end that we've seen in a decade or more. And there's been some good ones, too, over the years. But he's a mismatch for any linebacker, 6'6", 245, 250, whatever he is. The guy's fast. He got hands like a receiver. He runs great routes. He's tough. He's physical. I mean, he's got it all. He's going to be great at the next level. He'll be highly drafted when he does come out. But anyway, Florida can pretty much score at will on anybody. And so when it comes time for them to play Alabama in the SEC championship, it's going to be like a Big 12 championship game. It's going to be a score fest. Can Florida outscore Alabama? I think that they can. Right? Is it likely? No, because Alabama's just more a complete team than Florida is. But it is possible. So somebody asked me yesterday if you had to put a percentage chance on that Florida will beat Alabama in Atlanta on December 19th, I said about 20%. And I think that that's fair, right? I mean, that's 1 out of 5. And that's not a low percentage. I think 20% is fair. And let's face it, Alabama looks like the best team in the country. Of course, we'll get to them in a minute. But right now I have Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts, the Kyles at number 6. Let's look at number 5. This hasn't changed. So here's what's interesting about A&M. Their only loss being to Alabama, which pretty much Alabama would beat just about anybody in this top 10, right? The funny thing about them is their defense looks amazing, but their offense, this is what we've been waiting on all year, right? Because the knock on the offense, and Kellen Mond in particular, is that he's been up and down, up and down, up and down his entire career at A&M, which seems like it's been 30 years or so. But the thing is, they played, their offense played good for a few weeks, and now they're on the downslide again. Their defense is amazing, okay? Their defense is what's winning them these games, actually. Offensively, they're regressing. So at this point, without any offense, and that's where they're headed. They're headed to having no offense at all. I mean, not just a average to above average offense, but a below average offense. That's where they're headed. You can't win in the playoffs like that. Not in today's football, you can't. So even if they do find a way to backdoor their way into the playoffs, they would lose to Clemson, they would lose to Ohio State, they would lose to Alabama. I mean, this, according to me, my opinion. Quite frankly, if they were to play Florida again this season, a rematch, I know A&M beat them already, which is why I have A&M ahead of Florida in my rankings, because head-to-head has to matter. I think Florida's better than A&M, but they played, and A&M won. But if they were to play again, I think Florida would probably win at this point. Nonetheless, it's still a really good football team with one loss. And you have to, a lot of people are out there are upset about A&M's rankings, both in my rankings and with the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings, saying that they're overranked, they're overhyped, this and that. But look, man, you have to go by the results. And the wins and losses have to matter. Otherwise, why are we playing the games? They're sitting there with one loss in the SEC. Of course, they're going to be in the top 5. Number 4, Buckeyes. Okay, here we go. I have had Clemson at 4 for the past, 3, since they played Notre Dame and lost. I've had Clemson at 4. Now, the Buckeyes didn't play this weekend. Their game got canceled. That's not their fault. Clemson played Pitt and won by 30 or whatever. I mean, they say, you saw it was 52-17 or whatever. That's the only reason I have Clemson ranked ahead of Ohio State. I dropped Ohio State down to 4. And again, this doesn't matter either. Because the two of the 4 teams are going to play each other in the ACC championship in Notre Dame and Clemson. Most likely, they'll both wrap up their spot in Charlotte here this week if they win. Clemson against Virginia Tech, and then the Irish against Syracuse. Syracuse is awful. Of course, they're going to win that game. Virginia Tech's not much better. Anyway, it's not the Buckeyes' fault. If Ohio State had played this weekend, and if Ohio State had gone out and won by 30 against, who were they scheduled? I can't even remember their schedule to play. Illinois, I think. If they would have beat Illinois by 30, which I think that they would have, then I would have kept Ohio State at 3 and Clemson at 4. Unfortunately for the Buckeyes, Clemson got to go out there and showcase and be dominant, and they were sitting at home watching. So it's not their fault. It's not a knock on Ohio State. I just moved them simply based on the results of the Pitt game. It was more about Clemson than it was about Ohio State. All right, so let's go ahead and just put the top 3 up there, Clemson, Irish, and Alabama, because the top 2 haven't changed. Obviously, Notre Dame and Alabama at 1 and 2. The Irish had a decisive win on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. They're solidified at the number 2 spot. I don't see them losing a game. Here's the thing I want to know, though. So Clemson, they had their game canceled or postponed or whatever with Florida State a couple of weeks ago. So they were saying maybe they would move that game to December 12th. Well, the Clemson doesn't want to play the game. Quite frankly, I know Florida State doesn't want to play the game, and they've already shown that. Without the ACC stepping in, there's going to be an open date there. So Clemson will have a de facto bye week the week before the ACC championship. Meanwhile, Notre Dame had to reschedule a game, and they are scheduled to play Wake Forest on December the 12th, the week before the ACC championship game. If Notre Dame wins this weekend against Syracuse, which they will, even if they only show up at the Waterboy, they'll beat Syracuse. They will have clinched their ticket to Charlotte. So there's no need for them to play Wake Forest the week before they have to play Clemson. As a matter of fact, I don't see why they would or should. We always talk about if stuff is fair in sports. Nobody likes to use that word, fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. Well, it's really kind of not fair. It's really kind of not fair to the Irish that they had to reschedule a game and they have to actually play it. Meanwhile, Clemson didn't, and they get 2 weeks to prepare for the Irish, and they get to sit home and heal up. So I think what we're going to see, we're going to see Notre Dame make a stink about this, and maybe they'll back out of the game. If they back out of the game, is it a forfeiture? Well, not in 2020, apparently. So, that'll be extremely interesting. Coming up after this weekend, there's going to be a lot of talk about whether or not the Irish should have to play against Wake Forest on December 12th. And can they back out the way that Florida State and some other teams have backed out? We'll see. Alabama at number 1. Anybody going to argue with that one? I mean, you can argue probably with Georgia, Miami, Indiana, the order of any of these teams in the top 10. Should BYU be in there? Should Coastal Carolina be in there? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Is anybody going to sit here and argue with me about Alabama being at number 1? I would love to hear an argument why they shouldn't be. I need a good laugh today. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. And I'll see you tonight for the College Football Playoff Rankings show live here on Pigskin Pete's YouTube channel. Have a great day. Leave some comments below. Hit the like and subscribe button. Pigskin Pete is checking out.